Welcome back into another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, SJ Munoz with you once again, here to talk some fun college football. We had an interesting week of games to look back on. We'll talk about what we're drinking tonight. We'll look back at our last week picks and then get into some picks here for this week, and got a couple interesting topics to touch on. SJ, another fine weekend of watching some pigskin.
Yeah, we had the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess. So, I mean, that's par for the course in this world or just in life, I suppose. But yeah, obviously, same thing every week we say, a couple crazy things, maybe some one or two expected things, and then, maybe we, throw a dart and it lands here. So we'll take a look back here in a minute and see how the week went for us. But all in all, a pretty decent week. Maybe not the best. We can always do better, but we'll take what we can get right now.
Yeah, we were kind of around the 500 mark when you look at our picks here overall. So we'll get to that rundown here for you in just a moment. But first off, the important stuff, what we're pouring down our gullet here tonight. I've got one in front of me from the fine Deschutes Brewery. This is one that's always prominent on the shelves. It's their fresh squeezed IPA. Again, kind of more of maybe a IPA amenable guy, I guess is how you'd say it, compared to you. But I don't love them, so I like to find the ones that are kind of like have a little bit of that taste and not just a hot blast in your face kind of stuff. And
you're not trying to drink a glass of grass.
Yeah,
but, a little bit of flavor,
yeah.
but the little bitter is okay. Just not, you don't want the bitter beer face of the old school commercial.
Exactly. This one's a little bit maybe heavier than some people would like, but it's one that I enjoy. I mix it in every once in a while. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of still hanging on to the lagers. I know getting kind of more towards the fall season here, but the weather is still fairly decent, at least in my part. So I got actually the Southwest Boulevard Lager by Boulevard. They're actually located on Southwest Boulevard, and if familiar with KC or listeners are, that's definitely one of the main kind of if you're a foodie type destination, got a lot, especially some serious taco joints on that street, and just a lot of variety, and just kind of a little cool neighborhood there too, on top of everything. So yeah, it's like a salt lime kind of lager. So like I said, pairs with like taco type, that type of food. But yeah, I'm going with the lagers at least for this week. I'm excited to start hitting some porters and some stouts, but it's just, when it's 85 degrees, it's kind of hard to, for me at least. Everybody has their preferences, but for me, it's kind of hard to drink a something that heavy when it's still 80 plus degrees outside. So hopefully it's coming soon, because I got a couple waiting that I've been wanting to hit since last fall winter season.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one you're pouring there. Yeah, it's interesting. I saw a little bit the other day on the 60. I think it was on 60 Minutes. It was either on 60 Minutes or CBS Sunday Morning with Jim Gaffigan. He did a little spiel about talking about like craft beer and how it's exploded, and he was just kind of like making fun of essentially people liking all kinds of weird stuff. And he's like, "I want my beer to taste like beer," going on that rant. But and he talked about the different kind of flavors, and I'm with you. I think it's like if you're a kind of in middle of the road beer person where you're interested in a lot of stuff, it is kind of seasonal. You feel the weather with it, and I think that's how it goes. And yeah, we'll be getting to that harder stuff here pretty quick once that weather turns for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm wanting that weather to come, but I'm excited to try the beers, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily rushing some 30-degree weather. I can leave that all day, but
Yeah.
it's coming, so I might as well get the mind ready for that.
Yeah, it's those hibernation beers, so to speak. Let's take a look here at some of our picks. I'm going to leave a few of them out here for a moment because we've got an overwhelming theme that we wanted to talk about with a few of these. But we started the week off with Liberty letting us down. They had a chance to cover, and they ended up only winning 42-38 and blew it late in the ball game, so it kind of let us down there. But we bounced back nicely. The next couple of them I had for you were just kind of fun ones at the end of the week. James Madison won easily over Marshall, 20-9, covered that one. They were only giving up 4. SMU was giving up 18, but that didn't matter. They won 55-0 on Friday night over Temple.
Just barely. They covered just barely, right?
Yeah, just barely.
Oh, it's always nice to see that when you got that money in the pocket already.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the other nice ones we hit, or a real good one we hit that you had for us, that Mizzou. They were given 6 to South Carolina, and they played really well. 34-12 was the final there. Got that W. And then we also had Utah in the late nightcap. They were getting 5.5. I felt good about that. It was actually a touchdown by the time I looked at it on Saturday, and I thought, oh heck yeah, I'm taking that. And yeah, they get a walk-off field goal to win the game. It was back and forth all night long. They were kind of up. USC came back and got the lead, and then yeah, they needed that late push to get the win. And yeah, they just seem to have USC's number here these last few years. They've got them quite a bit.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It seems like, when it got late in the game, and I know they were trailing with, time running down, you still don't have your, your main guy at quarterback. It's still everything I was thinking just by, getting a feel for the game and watching it, and just based upon the recent history that was Utah's game to win. And they did it again. They've really kind of been a thorn in USC's side. I'm sure they're kind of, got a, public enemy number one, so to speak, for, the Trojans. But I mean, you don't like it, beat them. You got the opportunity, so
yeah, change the storyline if you want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty impressed when I was watching part of that game. I didn't realize just how many people Utah has had gone down during the year. I mean, I knew the Cam Rising situation,
right?
But yeah, they've had other like star receivers and a tight end that are out right now, and they just keep finding ways to play decent football. And it's just a testament to Whittingham and his program there. They kind of next man up, and they're doing okay. Another one that did let me down in the evening session, though, was Texas Tech. I had them giving 4.5 on the road at BYU, and yeah, I should have listened to you. Stay away from those Cougars. They're Jekyll and Hyde. You just don't know what you're going to get out of them, and they played well, at least from the start, because they jumped out to a lead right away, and I was like, oh, man, this is brutal. Tech came back a little bit, but yeah, you just don't know what you're getting out of BYU week to week, so that was a tough one to take.
I'm starting to think they might have a mole, listening to the show maybe, because it seems like anytime that we talk trash on them, they come out and play their asses off. But anytime we're like, they're going to do all right, and they get they get a little high and mighty there and don't come to play. So I mean that's the only thing that makes sense in my mind, at least.
Oh, I know we shouldn't let those rat bastards into the Big 12. But the other 3 games that we're going to touch on here, we lost them all, so that's the sad part. But the overwhelming theme was we were kind of counting on some teams to not have that traditional letdown, coming off a big game or, coming off a situation where you felt like they were playing really well and probably against an opponent that, obviously a lot of people thought they should win against because these are all pretty high spreads. But it went the opposite route. They all kind of just came out lackluster, did not play well. One of them lost. Another one of them should have lost. And then another one kind of just limped their way through it. We had Oklahoma giving 18, coming off a bye week against Central Florida at home. I realized the game before that was Red River, but you had an extra week to prepare for a team that has not won a Big 12 game. I mean, I knew there would be a little bit of that motivation because of the Dylan Gabriel situation. Obviously he leaves Central Florida. They want to go get him, but still, you looked at the talent and you think, Oklahoma's going to take care of business here. But they barely ended up winning the game. They probably should have lost. So they had to stop a 2-point conversion try to preserve it. Interesting how that plays out. And to me, the killer there is that week off. I just don't understand how you're not ready for that.
Well, especially like when you're talking about such a big number too, the lines are set. Of course, the book wants to be right, and they don't want us to win. At the same time, maybe you're off 2 to 3 points one way or the other. Typically, with whatever bet you make, if you take the points or you like the underdog either way. But I mean, this game in particular, even a couple others that we'll talk about. It wasn't very. I mean, it's not even close. Like, it's not even in the ballpark.
Yeah, there you go.
Like you said, they almost lost. So obviously, that's not many thought the game would go that way. Even UCF showed up. Giving their best ever, but in their true honest opinion, might have said, we got a lot of work cut out for us. But that's why you play the games, and it's just like you said, the letdowns is. You've seen it for as long as football's been played, but it does seem. I don't know, for maybe it's just because we're really watching it. With this show and with the spreads, but it does seem this year seems a little bit higher than even some in the past of just more happening more often, becoming a more common thing.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the conference, shifting teams and people that aren't used to playing each other, that maybe
Yeah.
factors in as well. It's another point that we haven't brought up, but obviously you could, kind of add to the conversation too, that these are, conference opponents, sure, but Oklahoma and UCF don't exactly have a storied history, playing each other. So there's a lot of unfamiliarity there. So, I mean, I think that obviously probably plays into the mix as well.
Yeah, true enough. That's a good point. Another one this one's probably maybe a little bit more explainable. Oregon was giving 19 as we had it to start the week against Wazoo. I think it came down a little bit as the game got closer, but Wazoo hung in right there with them. Oregon finally did start to turn it on in the second half. They built a big enough lead that they were going to cover, and then they let that late backdoor score come across for the Cougs to ruin it. It ended up being a 38-24 ball game, so disappointing. That one maybe I can argue a little bit more the other way, just because Wazoo has played some decent games earlier in the year. They were just kind of on a downslide their last couple of games, and you felt like Oregon was on such a high after that Washington game and playing so well that they'd have no problem, at least at the end of the game, pulling away, and just not quite enough to preserve it.
Yeah, that was more just your standard, kick to the nuts type game. It wasn't like Oregon played bad. They won comfortably. I mean, 2 touchdowns against a legitimate conference opponent. A good team that, the only team to beat Oregon State so far this year is Washington State. So you're playing against a good opponent. It was more of just, kind of a short end of the stick deal for us. But, I mean, not much bad to say about how Oregon played. And compared to last week, we had plenty to say about that decision making. But I wouldn't consider that maybe a letdown, except for the spread part. But that's kind of the angle we're taking. But as far as how they played fine. We just didn't quite get there, and those are the ones that kind of stick in your craw a little bit more. This is literally a minute away from cashing that ticket.
The other one we'll talk about here, this is a monumental letdown. North Carolina coming off a huge win over Miami, and then they just lay an absolute egg against a Virginia team that has not been very good this season, and Virginia actually wins the game 31-27. So not only did North Carolina not cover 23.5, they lose the game. And I was talking to you before, and I saw the story earlier in the week with Mac Brown. Somebody had asked him kind of exactly about these types of moments. How do you avoid the letdown, so to speak? And he said, back when he was at Texas, they had played a game where they had won a big game, and then they were coming into an opponent. I believe they were playing Baylor the next week or something, and they were big favorites in the game. And he got a call from an NFL head coach, and said, you guys are in trouble. You're toast. He's like, you're the way that you guys were acting about the game. Everybody talking about how great you are and stuff, and you're talking about who you could possibly play down the road for a national title and those kinds of things, and you're in trouble in this next game. He's like, you don't want to be the rat that ate the poison cheese. You got all high in yourself.
It had to be another Texas coach, right? Just, judging on that saying, it sounds like something that floats around that state probably pretty regularly. But
yeah,
maybe I'm off, but it sounds like a Texas saying.
Yeah.
That's just my guess.
Yeah. But he said at the time, he's like, it made me think. I was like, well, heck, I'm gonna drive this point home then to our players. So he went around and hung a piece of cheese from everybody's locker and put the phrase up on the wall. And he said, the first half they came out, they played like crap. They were not doing very well. They eventually pulled away and won the game. But he said, that was just a prime example to me in my coaching career of, you can never forget about the next opponent. I really want to harp to these guys that they have to be ready. So obviously it was something that was in their mind. They had discussions about it, and it still went the opposite direction for them. You almost wonder maybe if they talked about it too much. Does it get in your head if you're too worried about it? I don't know, but just odd, especially with a team like that you thought was playing so well, to then turn around, be aware of the situation, and still come away with not only a bad performance, but a loss that you really didn't want.
One of those things I just think you can't really explain. I mean, it's a bad Virginia team. And, North Carolina looked like they were, who knows, maybe an outside chance at, a playoff, a little bit of a long shot, but still, had the opportunity, just a couple days ago, they were in the conversation. Now that's probably all gone. But yeah, it's hard to explain. And they obviously were. I mean, at least the coach was,
Yeah.
aware of what could be happening. But just one of those kind of scratch your head and look at. 23 and a half, you don't even see very often, let alone
Yeah.
don't even losing outright. Some Virginia fan made some money this weekend, so congratulations to them. Hope they spend it wisely.
Yeah, no doubt. It was by the way, the call was from Bill Parcells. That's who called him and told him that. So yeah, it
Well, I
makes
mean,
sense.
yeah,
Tracks a little
so
bit.
not a Texan, but he coached in Texas
He did
at
coach in
one time.
Texas.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, interesting because I pulled it up and yeah, there's some stories just a couple of days ago on the UNC sites avoiding the poison trap game against Virginia. Yeah, they did not do that. Interesting, yeah, and you bring that up too, like that number. That's pretty hard to get in any game, but let alone a conference game. I mean, wow,
yeah.
that's pretty shocking. So yeah, that was how it went last week here for us. Of course, there were some other games that we didn't necessarily pick that were pretty fun to watch and had some interesting results. The day started with, of course, the big one in the Big Ten that everybody had an eye on with Penn State and Ohio State. Your typical result, I guess. Everybody talked about, is this going to be the moment that James Franklin finally gets over the hump and wins a big game and takes down the mighty Ohio State? And no, I mean they just didn't. They did not have. They just did not have the offense. I mean they couldn't do anything offensively against Ohio. Ohio State's defense just ate them up all day.
Well, the thing that kind of is is a little surprising in this type of a situation where even though coaches and players, you say they don't listen to the outside noise and all that type of thing. That's a common sentiment. We know that you hear everything and know what's going on. Whether you're fan, coach, player, whatever. In fact, this is like almost not must win, but as close as you can get to a must win. Obviously, they don't have the inside the program, I'm sure they always have the title aspirations, but maybe it's not expected of them outside of it this year to compete. But they were setting up to have a chance to make a run at least being within the conference title, if anything else.
Yeah.
And there is no creativity, at least from what I saw. I understand you have a certain scheme. You have a certain way you attack a defense or way you play defense, but I just think you got to have a little bit more, take some chances. I mean, maybe it's out of your character. I know we talked about being who you are, but in this type of situation where you're the underdog and, you're kind of expected to, are you ever going to show up? Are you ever going to, even be competitive in this type of game? I think eventually you have to take a chance, especially when you're still under the same type of system and the same coach. You need to go out there and, do something different, or at the least, put all your chips out there to make a reference to what we're kind of doing here. Just make some gambles. Like, what's it going to cost you? Are you going to lose for the 10 straight time? What does it matter? Like,
I did think it was interesting because I watched most of that game during the broadcast. I thought it got a little bit overboard, maybe, but Klatt doing the color. He kept harping on that, like, when are we going to see Drew Aller take a shot down the field? You're not letting him do anything. I mean, they're just, and part of it was because their guys couldn't get open. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Right.
But yeah, they didn't really draw anything up that you felt like was those kind of gambles much at all. A lot of running the ball and a lot of very short, interesting routes. I don't know. Yeah, it was kind of a slog of a game, that's for sure.
Yeah, they've never been a flashy team, but I mean, with the how as long as Franklin's been a coach and it's just the staff he has, there's got to be something better they can draw up, at least a game plan wise. Maybe you don't do double reverse passes or whatever, but there's got to be a little bit more ingenuity there. I think if you want to win these games, maybe they're worried about taking chances and getting embarrassed, and they'd rather play it close and take the loss. Like we said, it's kind of all depends on your perspective and how you attack. We talked about that last week with Oregon, but I just, as a fan of that, if I was a fan of that team, I'd be disappointed just that you kind of knew it was coming and the same thing happened. It's just the kind of over and over again. It would get to be a little frustrating when you're losing is one thing. They're obviously the underdog, but losing without seemingly throwing everything you have at them is kind of where it would, kind of be something it'd be hard to swallow from my perspective.
Yeah. Well, another game that got a lot of attention, and especially for the way that it ended, and this is another team in the Big Ten that has very good defense and does not have any offense, is the Iowa Hawkeyes. They were down late in the game against Minnesota. PJ Fleck may be one of the how do I say this nicely?
Unintelligent,
least skilled coaches in late game scenarios that I've seen in quite a while, because for some unknown reason they have the ball with whether there's like a little over 2 minutes left.
yeah, around there, yeah.
Yeah, and so Iowa had all three of their timeouts left, but you knew you could force their hand and make them use them and then punt the ball back, obviously, is what you probably was going to be the scenario with maybe about a minute left or whatever it would have been. But for some unknown reason, he decides to run a rollout on second down, and they end up with an incompletion that stops the clock, that lets Iowa keep a timeout in their pocket. I have no idea what they were doing there. I mean, I guess I'm okay with something that you know is a sure thing, but the way the play rolled out, it was not anything close to a sure thing, the way that he ran out there and threw that thing. So that was blunder number one.
Well, yeah, and you see like a screen or like a really quick, wide receiver, a little bubble screen, something like that. Nothing that takes a while to develop, and definitely not, something that's going to be on the run or have your quarterback try to hit a moving target while he's moving too. It just doesn't seem like a recipe for success for that offense. So that was the first questionable call of many to come in that game, especially down there in the last few minutes.
Yeah. So then they, of course, end up having to punt the ball back to Iowa, and Iowa's in my mind, not arguably, their best player in Cooper DeJean was back to return the kick. And he was, he eventually ran the kick back for a touchdown, is what first happened. He ran the punt back for a score that would have put him up there with a little over a minute left, and it looked like here goes Iowa to find another hellacious way to win a game without having any offense. It was a really cool play. I mean, I'll give credit to him. The way that he ran it once he had it was pretty awesome. Now, they went back and reviewed it because he was really close to stepping out of bounds when he first made his first move, and that was part of what they were looking at. But turned out what cost them is they called it an invalid fair catch. So he was pointing at the ball as it was coming to him, and then with his left hand, he starts to kind of doing that wave away, like, kind of telling his guys, this is where it is, move away from this area. You see punt returners do that all the time, especially if it's a shorter kick. You don't want somebody accidentally getting hit with it, those kinds of things. It causes issues, obviously, when the guy's maybe blocking and he doesn't have a clue the ball's coming at him. So those are things that they do. Now, what they ended up ruling was that him waving it off was essentially, a fair catch. Then at that point, he's not supposed to be able to return the ball. So he did go up to it and then catch it, which in the moment when I'm watching it live, I was like, oh, wow. Like, I was surprised that he decided to go up and grab it because there was some guys that were actually pretty close to him when he did grab the ball. Of course, the coverage team absolutely botched bringing him down. I have no idea how they didn't tackle him, but it's like three guys that just ran right past him.
I'd say only five guys had a chance. What do you want from him?
So obviously very controversial. The Iowa fans were absolutely pissed. They're throwing stuff onto the field, and it looked like for a minute there might be a penalty on top of it. That would have moved him back even further for the sportsmanlike stuff, but they didn't do that. They let him play it out, and of course, then Iowa throws an interception to end the game. You didn't expect their offense to go make the play to win the game because it's not what they do. So yeah, interesting. I mean, I've never seen a play called like that. I didn't necessarily know what the rule is, but from what I've started to read from some other people, is that that's supposed to be the rule. Like, if you're waving people off, that's essentially saying that you're getting away from it as well, and you're not going to return the kick. And they're supposed to say that that's a, kind of a fair catch type situation where it's just going to get downed. But interesting, and I've never seen it called that way eventually, and that's what they decided on. And obviously, a lot of Iowa fans are not very happy about it.
Yeah, it seems like a simple play, but it's kind of a complex conversation. Obviously, first off, just kind of just. My perspective would be, I don't really have, especially when it comes to conference teams and Iowa in particular, I don't have any damn sympathy for anything bad that happens to them. So I thought it was hilarious. I enjoyed every minute of it. I actually had the that game was on a separate screen that wasn't like my main screen. Just as usual, you probably do a lot of sports fans, especially on a Saturday or a Sunday. You got multiple screens going, volume obviously coming out of one main, whatever you're focused on. So when I saw the review, I thought, like you mentioned, they did look at it. I thought they were looking if he stepped out or not. And you could see there was a little enough green in there that he didn't step out, but they kept kind of kept rolling and kept going. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, come on, like if you can see the green, like he ran it back. Let's kick off and let Minnesota, take their last shot here. Then I, kind of go back to my game and look up, and it's still it's Minnesota still got the lead. So I'm like, okay, hold on here. You go back and you're like, okay, I've had it, put a couple of these cold ones down, but I'm still got my bearings about me a little bit. I know that Iowa just took the lead. And so, like, it kind of game plays out as it does. So I will say, though, that, that call sucks if it goes against you. If you say it's the worst call ever. And by the letter of the law, it sounds like it may be the correct call, depending on your perspective or, how much credit you want to give to the officials or not.
Yeah.
That's kind of all goes into that kind of thinking right there. But they did still – I know their offense sucks, but that's not the referee's fault. That's not their problem. They still did have, little over a minute left or so, or is it somewhere around there with the ball? I mean, 20 yards, you get a field goal attempt? No one's pretty good kickers. Defense and special teams is what they're pretty decent at. I understand their offense is bad, but it's bad timing, maybe a bad call. You still did have a chance to win. So it wasn't necessarily like, if Minnesota got the ball right back after that call, then I say that lost you the game. But it sucks on the timing and probably hardly ever gets called. Like you said, I don't remember when I've seen it. Yeah. I don't know when anybody else has seen it, but technically they still did. Not even technically, they did still have a chance to win the game. Yeah. So maybe it's because who it happened to. I don't know. I'm willing to take that bias, but they still did have a chance to win. It's just kind of. It sucks when that happens at that time and kind of becomes the storyline of the game rather than like the 59 minutes before.
Yeah, no doubt. And it took away a great play. I mean, it was awesome. I'll give it to Cooper DeJean. That was a heck of an effort on his part. And it does suck. I mean, in the moment, I was like, yeah, that's crap. Like that sucks. I mean, because he never did put his arm above his head, which is always kind of the telltale. This is actually a fair catch signal. He did not do that, and I'll admit that. But the way it was kind of weird. I mean, he was partly kind of balancing himself because he's pointing, but he was waving his arm it was just kind of awkward what he was doing. I mean, it's not something you see a player do a lot when they're returning a kick. And I could see how that would be interpreted that way. And then the wording of it is also goofy. I mean, invalid fair catch. Was that really the call? I mean, was it more so that he was waving people off? I don't know. I don't know how that's supposed to be determined. From what I've heard from some people is like it's one of those deals where this is probably how it should always be called, but it never does kind of scenario. Right. And so it sucks. Well,
I've also heard the thought of maybe he was trying to, juke out the defense, making them think he was calling fair catch. Mm-hmm. So they pause for a second and then he takes off. Yeah. Could be possible too. We don't know what he was thinking. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Give us something to talk about for a few minutes, I guess. But it's just it's kind of the luck, the way the game goes. It sucks, but it's just part of it,
Well, and that's what's so interesting though is as many years as we played this sport, there's always something new. There's always something new. Like the nuance of every play is so different.
That's what I give. The baseball guys always got some crazy stat or some weird number, but at the same time, football ain't far behind or any basketball, whatever sport. There's so many, which kind of plays into, what we're doing here. There's so many variables and so much, just that you can't control, even if you're in the game, let alone if you're nothing to do with the game other than a fan or, maybe a wager, So there's a lot of things that go into it that just you couldn't make it up and then it happened. So. Yeah. Yeah. That's life, man. I guess it's good advice to go on there.
Yeah, but certainly a lot of bad to go around at the end of the game. The way that Minnesota decided to play it, not being able to tackle him anyways, we shouldn't even let the play happen. And then I was inept offense.
Kick it out of bounds. He's one of the better punt returners in the conference. Kick it out of bounds.
Exactly.
Make them go. Their offense is not very good. Kick it out of bounds. Let them if they drive and beat you, so be it. But that would be the odds I'd rather take. And then the play calls to stop the clock on top of it.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people were up, on PJ Fleck boat rowing right with him, but I don't know what they ever saw, and I'm just glad that we're kind of starting to see some of the the truth that come out of that of his of his talents as a coach or lack thereof.
There's been some late games I've watched his teams play in the last few years. It just kind of like scratch your head. I don't know what's going on sometimes. But yeah, Iowa had a total of 2 yards of offense in the second half. So if you want to argue that you should have won the game, that's probably not where you should be arguing. But
right.
Anyways, we'll move on. We talked about, of course, the great finish there with Utah, and then there was another late game that was pretty fun as well. It went into an overtime scenario with Clemson in Miami. That ended up being a wild game. I didn't even pay attention to any of it. I feel bad kind of not watching any of the game, but it turned out to be a really good one too.
Yeah, most years that'd be a big matchup. You didn't really hear much about it. Kind of just was under the radar there. Both teams, well, probably Clemson more so than Miami, but definitely struggling a little bit this season. So I know probably the biggest thing to come out of it was Dabo's little post-game rant he went on. He's kind of making a habit of that. I mean, I know he's always been kind of outlandish and just kind of a little goofy, and he plays up his, whatever you want to call it, his southern roots, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of plays up that little character as his shtick, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, at some point you have to start taking some blame. It's not always somebody else, especially with the program you've been that successful. You've proven you know how to build a winner. Go back to that recipe and get to work instead of always kind of trying to point the finger at something else.
Yeah, you would think that at this point there's not a lot of excuses at Clemson. You don't have a lot of things to be upset about. I mean, you built a good program. But yeah, they lose it in double overtime. 28-20 was the final on that one. So pretty interesting week of football. Lots of good things, and gave us a lot of good things to talk about, obviously. So we're going to move on in here to this week and get you some picks, and hopefully we'll come out on the plus side here this time around. We're getting there. We're trending in the right direction here for you. So we've got some fun ones. I did want to throw one out there here for early in the week. There's always that, kind of itch get going early in the week. Tuesday night football, which is just bizarre anyways. But Louisiana Tech.
That doesn't sound that bad, I don't think.
Yeah.
I get what you mean, though, yeah.
Yeah. Louisiana Tech given 2.5 against New Mexico State. Now, New Mexico State's actually played decent here this year, but La Tech at home only given a few points. They've been okay. It's kind of a, toss-up type of matchup, I feel like. And I feel like the home team's got a little bit of an edge in that one. So I'm just going to, a little baby pick there early in the week there to go with that one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I kind of want to get things going a little earlier in the week than normal, excuse me there. I'm going to hop on Wednesday night, though. Go for the, maybe do a little UTEP and Sam Houston State. Maybe not, doesn't sound that great to the ear, but hear me out here for a minute. Sam Houston State's actually the favorite at 0-7. UTEP coming in, 2-6, so not exactly, world beaters there, but I like them getting the 3 points, just being a little bit more competitive in their contests. And obviously, anytime you're looking at an Ophir team, I mean, it's kind of hard to pick them, and it does make you a little curious, them being the favorites. But with that 3 points, I've even seen 3.5. I like a close game there. I like UTEP to hang around and maybe look at the line later in the week and maybe even take a look at that money line there. But we'll stick with the +3 for UTEP for now.
Yeah, it's been interesting for Sam Houston State. This is their jump into D1 here this year. They were a powerhouse at the FCS level for a long, long time, and they've been in some close games. But yeah, they just have not been able to figure it all the way out yet, and that's understandable when you're making that kind of transition. I will throw another one out here at the end of the week. I like Florida Atlantic. They're given 5.5. They're on the road at Charlotte, which actually Charlotte is a decent team too, but they played a little rough against UTSA, but they had a good one before that. So I'm going to go with FAU to pick one up there.
Head over to Saturday. I've got to get to the weekend and get right on the days here. Probably the one I'm most confident about. We talked about last week, just kind of our confidence levels and how we'll kind of factor that into our picks here for you guys, so you kind of maybe gauge what your bets are stuff. I like Oregon State. The game -4 at Arizona. In addition to that, this is a maybe here, but just keep an eye on that total number, 55.5. where it's at right now. Perhaps might make that play as well. The official play is going to be, though, the -4. Like we said earlier, Oregon State's the only team to beat Washington State. They've also beat Utah and UCLA within the last 3 weeks on top of that. So they're kind of on a pretty good run here this season. So I like them to cover that number, just outside the top 10, Oregon State.
Yeah, that's a good one there. I like that too. Yeah, and playing off what you were saying there too, I guess maybe we should throw that kind of out there for folks too. If you're following us on social media, we're most active on Twitter, that's what we use the most, or X, whatever you want to call it these days.
We're calling it Twitter, man. That's just stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, you're gonna charge $1 to every person that uses Twitter. You know how much money that right there? Think about how much money that is right there. This dude's a straight con artist, man. Like if honestly, if that does happen, we might be switching platforms. FYI,
no doubt.
We'll let everybody know when that day comes.
Yeah, exactly. But SJ's been doing a great job putting out those graphics for you every week through our accounts. Shows our picks, and then this last week I kind of added in a little wrinkle there for you because we started doing that confidence level, and we have some graphics there to kind of help you figure that out if you're just looking at it there too.
Yeah, just being a heavy on not over the top. We do it responsibly, but being a drink related podcast as well. With our cold beverages here, I kind of kept that theme here. We did with the graphics that we put out. So if you see the graphic on Twitter, there'll be the most confident we have. We got gotta go with the emoji, right? Got to stay pretty current. Got to stay with the youth and what they're doing. I don't think we'll be on TikTok, but we'll stay as current as we can, in our age. So we don't want to be too outdated. But we went the emojis, right? So the popping bottle, the champagne bottle. That's our most confident. So when you see that on there, that's probably where we're going to be putting the bulk of our money that we're betting that week. So that would be the ones, if you agree, we'd say kind of go heavy on those, and guess industry term, we're going to be hammering that, so to speak.
Yeah.
You see the the beer, the full beer, got the beer emoji, you got the suds kind of flowing over the top. That's pretty good. Means we're feeling pretty good about that. Maybe a 7 out of 10 to kind of put your mind on that. So that's a decent bet and put some okay money on that. The next one, we're going with the whiskey. It's half full, so kind of as the the whiskey emoji shows, about 50-50 on that. So that's on you. You make the call what you think. If you're leaning over that half full, or if you're an optimist, maybe the pessimist, half empty, maybe don't put as much money on that. And then lastly, we got the bottle. So you got the nipple on it. So we're trying to take things easy on that. It might be like maybe those Tuesday, Wednesday action type games, or maybe something we want to take a underdog shot on. But we're not going to be throwing the whole bankroll on that. But we might say there's something there. It's just not maybe worth your whole account. Just be easy with those ones. So just maybe, so if you don't catch the show, you don't have time to listen, or you don't want to go forward back through and try to find the spot where we're doing the picks, you can look at that graphic there we throw up every week, and kind of use those emojis to guide your plays there.
All right, so that gives you a good hopefully little guideline there for you to help follow along with the program. And let us know if you have any feedback, and you have anything, suggestions for us to help you out even more down the road. We'd certainly be open to suggestions. One that I'm going to throw out there as our next pick here that I'm going to go with, kind of one of I feel really good about, is Wazoo. Obviously, we played really well last week against Oregon, kind of bouncing back after they had a couple weeks that were kind of down. They're playing a team that really has struggled in the conference in Arizona State, and they're only giving 6.5. It is on the road, which is always, a little bit different, but the way that they're kind of trending back the right direction, and especially playing against a team that they really should have no problem with, I'm going to go with that one as the one I feel real good about.
All right, another one I'm pretty solid on here. Probably be the beer emoji, but I might even pop a bottle on this one. UConn at Boston College. BC's 12.5 point favorite. Last week they took down Georgia Tech by 15. They've also beat Army and Virginia within the last 3 weeks, so they're on a little bit of a run here. And UConn is UConn on top of that at 1-6. So pretty confident in that 12.5 cover by Boston College.
Nice, like that too. I'm going to stick in the Pac-12, and I'm kind of like you on this one. I'm definitely on the beer, but might even pop the bottle on this one, depending on how it goes through the week and the number moves. Oregon's only laying 6 at Utah. Now, yeah, Utah had a nice win there against USC last week, but again, I'm not all overly been impressed with what USC is. I mean, they do have Caleb Williams, and outside of that, it's a lot of things that you very much question. Oregon, I think, is a very good team. Had a little bit of a lull there for a touch last week, but they still found a way to get in their groove. And I just think they're going to be too much for this Utah team that's got too many pieces that are kind of down right now. It is tough to play there. I'll give them that, but I think Oregon's got enough talent. They'll get that done.
All right, I'm going to break out the whiskey glass on this one. So Maryland is getting 13 at Northwestern. We're going to go neat, though, whiskey neat, so keep that in mind. Of course, Maryland's coming off that kind of little bit of letdown, like we talked about earlier. Lost to Illinois. They've had a bye week, though, in between, so I'm sure they're going to come out just kind of, full of piss and vinegar or what have you. So I think they'll be ready to play. And Northwestern, here and there they sneak up on some people, but they're just, with everything that's gone on, they just don't have, there's not a lot to work with there. Interim coach on top of everything. I think Maryland can put up some big numbers, and 13 minimum. I'd see a 20-plus point victory here.
Yeah. I'm going to go in the Big Ten here as well. I think this one, I'm real close to putting a Stein on this thing, but I'll probably stick with the whiskey just to temper myself, just because of the number. If it goes down during the week, then I'm definitely going to go up to the beer level. Ohio State is laying 14 at Wisconsin. I know it's at Wisconsin, and you look at names and whatever, but Wisconsin's offense is just horrendous. Ohio State's going to put up points, and the way that defense played last week against Penn State, they impressed me. I think they're kind of rolling their way into that late season matchup against Michigan, so I think they handle that 14.
Well, last week, Wisconsin, we kind of had to pull one out there against a not great Illinois team. Maybe consider them even bad, if some would. I'd probably be in that group. But so yeah, I could see that. And then losing the quarterback on top of that, I mean, we spoke about it, was going to be, that was one of the maybe picks there. And I ended up taking that off the board after that injury, because I honestly thought they were going to lose once he went out. Damn near did. Made a hell of a comeback. So, that was good to see for them. But yeah, I like that pick. That's a nice cover. This one's probably going to be on the rocks, because going to be a little watered down here. I'm not so confident in this pick, but I'm still a little bit above. I don't need the nipple just yet. Team we talked about a few minutes ago, Clemson at NC State. NC State's actually getting 10 points. They're both kind of coming in 4-3, a little bit, a little bit mediocre, maybe just, a step above mediocre. But besides the Duke and Notre Dame games, NC State's actually been fairly competitive. And I don't know, I think Clemson, Dabo might be losing that locker room.
Yeah.
Especially after that double overtime loss, and then just his comments we spoke about a minute ago. I think they could be going the wrong way the rest of this season. And, maybe they pull it out, but I think it kind of be one of those ugly, 17-14, 21-17 type games. And that definitely would cover that spread easily, that 10-point spread. So I'll say, whiskey, but, on the rocks, and not so confident in it, but it's definitely something I'm willing to play there this week.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm gonna go whiskey on the rocks for this one as well. I just watched this team. They broke my heart as part of a parlay this past weekend. Louisiana, they came all the way back and ended up throwing an interception in the end zone to ruin my weekend. But it was
it doesn't sound very raging to me.
No, they were not raging.
It's the opposite of raging.
Yeah, dang it. But now they're taking on a pretty good, what has been a pretty good. They've had a couple weeks where it made me scratch your head a bit, but they've had some good wins. South Alabama is hosting Louisiana this weekend, and they're 10-point favorites. And Louisiana, from what I saw when I watched that game, they have a good freshman quarterback that can do some things with his legs because he can kind of improvise. But if you get him stuck in the pocket, there's not a lot they can do. They're kind of tough running the ball. They pick up little chunks here and there. But South Alabama's they had a huge win over Okie State earlier this season, which is a team that really started to turn it on here late. So I like South Alabama at home, especially to be able to cover that 10. So I'll put a whiskey on that one.
All right, last one here for me, and this is I gotta break out the bottle on this one, not the popping bottle, got the nipple on this one, and this probably a lot of this is I don't want to say emotion because I never bet on emotion, but it's more of a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of thing. I'm going Wyoming +5 at Boise State. Makes me a little nervous being at Boise on that blue turf. You never know what's gonna happen there, but the Boise's coming in losing 2 out of the last 3, and Wyoming. We've talked about them a couple times here on the show. They've proven worthy in the bigger games, at least on their schedule. So I'm not gonna go money line or anything like that, but I do think they can cover that 5 points, and I wouldn't be shocked if they win. I'm just not. This is more just like I said, a thank you, so to speak, for being so good to us. We'll go Wyoming +5 at Boise.
Yeah, Wyoming's your dog.
Yeah, just for now. That can change very quickly.
We're what have you done for me lately kind of podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm gonna do a little baby nipple one for you as well here, just to finish it off. I watched some of this game last week for the Duke Blue Devils, and they were looking good for a while there against Florida State. Florida State turned it on late in the game and pulled away in that ball game. Riley Leonard, though, has made a return. Duke did have another injury during the game. It was one of their corners, I think, that got injured. But the defense for them is pretty salty at times. And I don't know. I feel like after Louisville had that win against Notre Dame, it's like they just kind of the wind went out of the sails. I mean, they are hosting, so that makes me a little bit worried about it. But I just kind of like the way this Duke team plays, and I think that's one where they can kind of just go in and snag it. It's kind of a bounce back for them. It felt like they maybe let themselves down the second half of that game last week. I think they go in there. They're getting 4, and it may end up being a little bit more by the time the end of the week's done. So, I'll play the Blue Devils there. A little fun, just kind of little tiny sip in the end of the bottle. So that's what we've got here for you this week. Hopefully we're gonna bust through, hit that payroll, start hitting that ka-ching all weekend long for you and have some fun. Again, we appreciate if you would share, like, review, comment. I have been trying to put up maybe a little bit of a poll there too. If you listen to it on Spotify, throw a little poll on there usually every week about something that happened during the weekend, your reaction to it. So have some fun with that. If you have any suggestions on that, we feel free to shout it out to us, or any picks as well. Hit us up on Twitter at SJMBets and at Cherokee CP. We'll put the graphics and all that good stuff out there for you and get you the links so you can listen directly. And you can listen on that platform, Amazon, and on Google Podcasts as well. So we hope you do that. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering.